Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions here to talk about The X-Files, Season 1, Episode 5, Jersey Devil. The episode's description reads as follows. Mulder and Scully track a legendary creature that has roamed the New Jersey countryside for over 40 years. The episode was written by Chris Carter, and the episode was directed by Joe Napolitano. This is one of two efforts for him. The other is this season's Darkness Falls. Napolitano is a guy I've talked about before. He's done work on Quantum Leap, and I've covered several episodes that he directed, the last of which, so far, was the third season episode, Black on White on Fire. Here's where things get funny. I recently had conversations with the daughter of Tommy Thompson, Jessie. He also wrote several episodes of the original Quantum Leap. Thompson and Napolitano met on Quantum Leap, became best friends until Joe's unfortunate passing on July 23, 2016. Thompson was an executive producer on the first 4 episodes of Sequest DSB. Napolitano directed the 3rd episode of that series. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. He also had 3 directorial stints on The Pretender, which both Tommy Thompson and his daughter, Jessie Targum, worked on. Before we go any further, I will tell you a couple things. 1, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give me a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, feel free to follow and check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to my channel. So, once again, I'm a bit at odds with the fandom on this particular episode. It wasn't well received back in its initial airing, but I really liked it as a kid, and I still find it pretty enjoyable. It's by no means an absolute classic, but it's still a fun watch. It also has the distinction of being one of the few times in the series where we see Scully have a personal life. We start off with a family trip in 1947, singing a song, Bingo was his name-o, when seemingly they get a flat tire out of nowhere. The father ends up changing the tire, but his flashlight rolls off into the woods. He tries to recruit his wife to help him out, but something gets him and drags him off into the woods. A search party looks for him the next morning, but what they find is the father's mutilated corpse. They discover whatever was responsible, which we don't get to see it, but they do, and they open fire on it, presumably killing this creature. And credits. When we come back, Scully is entering the office, and clearly Mulder is looking at porn, and this is the first hint of his predilection for porn in this series. Okay, Mulder, I guess someone is going to need to watch those sexual harassment videos again, or perhaps for the first time. Wouldn't you know it, Scully has a case. This is the first time Scully is giving Mulder the rundown. A body was found in New Jersey with its legs eaten off by what appears to be a human. Mulder thinks it's the mob, but the victim was a homeless person, so no, it wasn't the mob. Mulder whips out an X-File, the 1947 case about the Jersey Devil, basically the story we saw at the beginning of the episode. Mulder decides to rent a car to go check it out, despite Scully's objections. They travel to New Jersey and talk to the pathologist, and end up talking to a Detective Thompson, who is none too pleased to see them. Basically tells the agents to take a hike. Thompson is played by Wayne Tibbett. He has 74 acting appearances, and guess what? We have another Quantum Leap connection. He appeared in the second season episode, the Americanization of Machko, as the father of Sam Beckett's host. And this was an episode of the series that I covered at one point. He passed away in 2009 at the age of 76. Mulder wants to stay and investigate. Scully, meanwhile, isn't too interested. She has to go back to DC for her godson's birthday. This is the one and only time her godson will be mentioned or seen within the course of this series. Mulder tosses the keys to Scully and takes off walking, despite Scully objecting that it's a 3-hour drive to DC by herself. But you know, Mulder doesn't care. Mulder at the casino, I'm not sure why he came here, calls the park services and meets with an officer. He's played by Michael McRae, and this is one of 2 appearances for him on the series. The other is in Season 5, the Pine Buff variant, as a very different character. The officer doesn't want to say much because he doesn't want to jeopardize his pension. But he does tell a story about how he once saw a large naked man in the woods who took off after noticing him, never to be seen again. And I gotta ask, Mulder walked here? And he's gonna walk back into town? That seems like an awful lot of walking. Cut to Scully at the birthday party. Wild kids running around, playing with noisemakers. She's dressed in normal clothes. That's something we have not become accustomed to Scully doing during the course of this series. Scully says to her friend that she doesn't think she's cut out for motherhood, but her friend thinks that the FBI training is all the training that she would need. Well, I don't think so, but her training could very well help her determine what evil creature killed one of these said children, if that counts for anything. They talk about finding her a man. And her friend asks, well, what about your partner? And Scully says, he's a jerk. Well, no, he's not a jerk. He's just obsessed with his work. Hey, you know, Scully, both things can be true. And if anything demonstrates the fact that Mulder is kind of jackassy, this is an episode that's a prime example of exactly that. Scully ends up meeting one of the fathers at this party. Do I sense love in the air? Mulder gets into town and finds a homeless encampment, asking people if they know a Roger Crockett, and that would be the victim of the episode. Everyone but one ends up ignoring him. This guy ends up giving him a picture, for a price, of course. It's a crudely drawn picture of something he found in a jacket, something the homeless dude claims he saw. And Mulder asks, are you hustling me? Alright. You know the time to ask this question is before you give the guy money? But that's just me. Mulder offers the person his hotel room, and Mulder is going to stay here for the night. That seems like hardly a fair trade. After walking all those miles and sleeping on the street, Mulder should be quite sore in the morning. Mulder is woken up by sounds. He goes to investigate, sneaking around, and sees something skulking around. It appears to be a naked female figure, and it senses Mulder and runs off. But he's soon interrupted by the cops, who thinks Mulder is a drunk, and they want to get him off the streets. On the one hand, he looks like David Duchovny. On the other hand, he occasionally sounds like a person who would be considered a crazy drunk, so I'm not sure I can blame the cops for making this mistake. In fact, are they even making one in the first place? I don't know, there's no proof that Mulder wasn't drinking. Mulder apparently summoned an unimpressed Detective Thompson. Mulder thinks he knows about the Jersey Devil, and when pressed on what Mulder saw, he whips out a picture he bought off the homeless man and gives it to Thompson. Okay, this is freaking hilarious. I cannot help but laugh every time I see this scene. It's one thing for Mulder to think the picture represents something the dude actually saw, but then to present it to the detective as somehow evidence and think that this is going to be in any way persuasive is pretty damn hilarious. He might as well have handed him a picture drawn by my 10-year-old daughter and expected the detective to believe him. All of this is, of course, is on brand for Mulder. This is not out of character. It's just hilarious as hell. Oh, and by the way, spoiler alert, the detective does not, in fact, believe him. And the detective tells him to have a good weekend. I'm not sure that was all that sincere. Scully, meanwhile, returns to the office to find out Mulder needs to be bailed out from the drunk tank. Scully, driving another 3 hours back to New Jersey for a total of 9 hours worth of travel time in this episode, roasts Mulder, saying it isn't surprising that they mistook him for a vagrant. And, yeah, I'm with Scully on that one. They eat breakfast, and Scully isn't convinced by anything Mulder is saying. Mulder, quick, show her the picture. That will definitely convince her. But Scully has to get back to DC for a date. Hey, that's another 3 hours of traveling time for a total of 12 hours driving for Scully. Our tax dollars hard at work, ladies and gentlemen. Before going home, Scully introduces Mulder to an old teacher of her. This is Gregory Syria, 139 acting credits for him. He died in 2021 at the age of 83. His last credit, The Other Side of the Wind, was an Orson Welles directed movie that was completed years after he died and took over 40 years to complete. Mulder asks, what happens if something gets introduced at the top of the food chain above us? The doctor doesn't believe this is possible due to our intelligence, and Mulder argues his point about a throwback Neanderthal man possibly occupying a space above us. Cut to Mulder by himself looking through pictures, and one is a drawn picture of an ape with big boobs. Hey, Mulder, you're creating a hostile work environment for me here. I don't want to see your ape porn. I'll be right back to finish this video after I finish talking to HR. Scully on her date. The dude seems pretty boring to me. He's already trying to get her to hang with his kids, and that's too soon, dude. Too soon. Wait a second, I'm here. So, Mulder is back in his office? He went back with Scully? Scully still hasn't beat for travel time in this episode, and it's not even close, and he won't come back to win this one at all. The Park Services guy calls Mulder about a body he found, and then Mulder pages Scully during her date, which is no great loss because it's a bust anyway. I mean, from all appearances, it seems like there's no chemistry here whatsoever. And Mulder speculates that it isn't a beast man while showing us his ape porn again. Hey, stop it, Mulder. You traumatized me enough for one episode. And guess where we're going? You guessed it. Back to New Jersey. That's 9 hours of travel time for Mulder and 15 hours for Scully. And they're going to end the episode with 18 hours of travel time to Mulder's 12. But Mulder hiked God knows how many miles to get where he gets when he leaves Scully to the woods and then back into town where he ended up sleeping on the streets before ending up in the drunk tank. But, Mulder kind of deserved all that. They talked to the doctor with the National Parks guy, and there is no body. Also, the professor is there. The body found was male, so they are looking for the mate, who ends up looking more attractive than Mulder's big-breasted ape picture. The four of them go in search of the Jersey Devil, through some random building, probably near the homeless encampment. Meanwhile, they aren't the only ones on the hunt. We see some sharpshooters under the command of Detective Thompson also looking for the creature. Mulder says that 8 million years out of Africa, they aren't much different, just finding advanced ways to kill each other. Thompson, meanwhile, questions the professor guy about Mulder, but the professor plays dumb. Mulder moves to the building and gets separated from Scully, who ends up diving under some pipes on the roof looking for the creature. Scully follows suit when she spots him. After chasing for a bit, in the dark, the creature ends up knocking him over, and she comes into view and sniffs Mulder. The only reason he doesn't end up booed here, in my mind, is because she's probably looking for a new mate, and Duchovny is probably what most women would consider ideal for the job. And by the way, it was David Duchovny that suggested to Chris Carter that Claire Stansfield should play the Jersey Devil. Duchovny and Stansfield had met earlier while filming The Bounty Hunter in 1992. This is interrupted by Scully scaring the creature away. Mulder thinks she's beautiful. The creature, that is. Aww. More commotion. Everyone is after the creature, including Thompson. Mulder and co. spot the creature first. The Park Services guy gets it with a dart, most likely filled with a sedative, which seems to be ineffective. Thompson unfortunately gets to her next, and they shoot her down. Mulder asks him why he had to kill her, and Thompson is unsympathetic. Mulder is in his office. Scully comes in with the details of the body. Scully suggests that Mulder take a day off, which of course he's not going to take. He's got a meeting, and Scully's boring date calls, trying to get another date. Scully turns him down for more adventures with Mulder. And that was the last time we saw Scully try to have a personal life until never again in Season 4. Which is an episode we may or may not ever talk about. We cut to the woods. A hiker is in the forest with his son, played by the same actors as the two we saw at the beginning of the episode. The actor who plays the father is Bill Dowles. 9 appearances on this series. The bulk of them as a doctor named Chuck. He even showed up in the revival as a character in the season 11 episode Lost Art of the Forehead Sweat, the last Darren Morgan written installment for the series, which tackled the Mandela effect. He would play a doctor character in 3 different Stargate series as well as the same character. The camera pans to the offspring of the Jersey Devil, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the episode ends. Like I said, for me it's a fun episode, some fun dialogue, but by no means a classic, but definitely worth a watch if you're revisiting this series as a fan. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions, at least as long as Twitter exists, which probably isn't going to be for much longer. You can join one of my Corn Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Corn Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Corn Productions, signing off.